The wagon wheels groaned over the cracked earth, each turn coughing up a ghost of dust that clung to the black hem of her dress. The air shimmered in the heat, swallowing the road ahead into a wavering blur. Somewhere beyond it, the town of Blackthorn Crossing baked in silence. Boot heels clicked on the warped boards of the saloon porch. Men leaned on railings, their eyes narrowing as the wagon rolled into view. A copper bell over the general store door gave a half-hearted jingle in the dry breeze. No one spoke. She reined in the horse before the watering trough, leather creaking as she dismounted. A wide-brimmed hat kept her face shadowed, but not enough to hide the steady way her eyes scanned the street, from the swinging saloon doors to the silent windows above. 3 men stepped forward from the saloon. Dust clung to their coats, but their boots were clean, too clean for honest work. The tallest of them, a lean figure with a silver tooth flashing in the sun, tipped his hat with a smirk. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, voice warm as a rattler's warning. "Fine place to be passing through, though folks like you don't tend to stay long." Her hand rested lightly on the worn wood of the wagon rail. "I'm not passing through." Silver Tooth's grin widened. "That's so. I reckon Cyrus Vale might take an interest in that." His eyes flicked to the folded paper in her grip, a deed, edges frayed from travel. "Vale can mind his own," she said, the words flat, carrying no heat, no fear. The man chuckled, but his partners didn't. One spat into the dirt. "Ain't healthy for a woman to make enemies out here." The sound of the wind filled the space between them, rattling the loose shutter of the old post office. She stepped past them, boots leaving neat prints in the pale dust. No wasted glance back, no sign she'd heard the threat. From the far end of the street, a door slammed. An old woman watched from her porch, arms crossed, head shaking slow. The stranger in black kept walking, deed tucked under her arm, every step measured. Not fast, not slow, like someone who knew exactly how far she'd go and what she'd do when she got there. Behind her, the men muttered. One laughed, but it was short, like a match sputtering out. By the time she reached the hitching post outside the sheriff's office, the wind had shifted, carrying with it the metallic tang of a coming storm. She glanced up, as if tasting it herself, then looked back toward the saloon. The men were still watching. Her hand brushed the side of the wagon, and for a moment her fingers lingered on a canvas-wrapped shape tucked beneath the seat. Then she turned away. Somewhere in the empty heat, a dog barked once, and the sound died in the dust. The wind had a low whistle to it, sliding through the broken slats of the barn. Fences rattled. The sky hung heavy and copper-colored, the kind that made the land hold its breath. Eleanor drove the last post into the earth, the hammer strike echoing across the dry pasture. From the ridge, a line of dust moved, slow at first, then curling tighter, like smoke drawing near. She straightened, wiping her hands on her skirt. The mare in the corral tossed its head, nostrils flaring. By the time she reached the porch, the dust trail had vanished into the folds of the land. But the silence it left behind was heavier than before. Inside, the air was close, smelling faintly of kerosene. She lit the lamp on the table, its light trembling on the wall. The clock ticked steady. Footsteps sounded in the yard. Not hurried, not cautious, just there. She opened the door. Vale stood in the falling light, coat collar turned up, his shadow stretching long over the porch boards. 2 of his men waited behind him, hands resting loose on their belts. "Evenin', Mrs. Finch," he said, tipping his hat. "Hope the day's been kind." She didn't answer. He stepped closer, the boards complaining under his weight. "Fine spread you've got here." "Shame, though place like this can be hard to keep without the right help." Her eyes didn't leave his. He smiled slow. "I'm a fair man. Marry me, and you keep your land. No trouble, no debts." Her hand stayed on the doorframe. "No." Vale's grin thinned. He glanced at the lamplight inside, then to her face. "Dawn's a long way off. You might think different by then." The wind rose, carrying grit between them. She didn't blink. When they left, their boots crunched deliberate in the gravel, the sound trailing off into the growing howl of the storm. Later, as the sky split in ragged streaks of red, a small fist knocked at her door. She opened it to find the neighbor's boy, hat in hand, eyes darting over his shoulder. "They're coming for you," he whispered. "Sun up." She knelt, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Go home, Eli." When he was gone, she closed the door and turned the key. The lamp hissed softly. She set the deed on the table and unrolled a length of oiled cloth, revealing the cold gleam of steel within. Her fingers moved over the rifle stock, tracing the worn grooves, the smooth trigger guard. The storm outside deepened, rattling the windows, pressing against the walls. Somewhere out in the darkness, the first fat drops of rain began to fall. The first light hit the desert like a blade, sharp and blinding. Long shadows stretched from the cottonwoods, spilling over the fence line toward the porch where Eleanor stood. The wind had died with the night, leaving only the creak of saddle leather and the muted jingle of spurs. Vale's men rode in slow, 7 in all, their horses kicking up pale clouds that drifted toward the house. Rifles glinted in the morning sun. Vale came last, reins loose in his hand, a smile cutting across his face. "You've a time to think," he called. Eleanor didn't move from the porch. Her black dress hung still against her frame, the rifle held low but ready. One of the riders laughed, the sound brittle. "Ain't no need to make this ugly, lady." She stepped down into the yard, boots sinking slightly in the soft morning dust. The men shifted in their saddles, eyes following her. Vale raised his hand, halting them. "Last chance." The light caught her eyes then, steady, fixed, unflinching. The old storyteller's voice, somewhere in the years ahead, would say they weren't the eyes of a widow that morning, but of someone who'd known war. The rifle came up smooth without hurry. The first shot cracked the stillness apart, sending a black hat spinning from a rider's head. His horse reared, screaming. Before the others could move, the second shot rang out, finding its mark. Dust bloomed under a falling body. Chaos broke loose. Vale's men fired wild, their bullets whining past the porch posts, chewing splinters from the rail. Eleanor moved with the same calm precision. Step, aim, squeeze, each report echoing off the canyon walls. 2 more went down, one clutching his leg, the other silent before he hit the ground. Vale's voice rose above the gunfire. "Hold her!" But no one held. Horses sidestepped, nostrils flaring, eyes rolling white. The men glanced at each other, breath ragged, hands shaking on their reins. A final shot cracked, and the last rider dropped his rifle, slumping forward over the horn of his saddle. Silence came back slow, dragging with it the smell of spent powder and the copper tang of blood in the warming air. Vale sat his horse alone now, his smile gone, dust streaking the side of his coat. Eleanor lowered the rifle, her breathing even, her face unreadable. "You've got nothing here worth dying for," she said. Vale stared at her for a long moment, then wheeled his horse and rode hard toward the horizon, the dust swallowing him whole. From the porch, the rifle barrel still smoked, a faint wisp curling into the morning light. The sheriff's boots crunched over the churned-up dust, his shadow stretching across the bodies that lay still in the yard. Smoke curled from the porch rail, thin as spider silk in the late morning sun. Eleanor stood by the gate, the rifle hanging loose at her side. Her eyes followed the horizon where Vale had vanished, though the dust of his trail was already gone. From the edges of town, faces began to appear, storekeepers, ranch hands, women with aprons still tied. They kept their distance at first, their steps slow, as though afraid the air might still crack with gunfire. Whispers moved among them. 6 men, down before they knew what hit him. Never saw hands that steady. She didn't miss once. The sheriff stopped in front of her. "Town's yours if you want it," he said, voice low. She gave no answer, only set the rifle but on the ground and rested her hand on the worn stock. Days later, the bodies were buried on the far side of the canyon, marked only by stones. Vale's name was never spoken aloud again. The ranch gates stayed shut to strangers, and those who rode past at night swore they saw a lamp burning in the window, steady against the dark. Years passed. One autumn morning, the place stood empty. The corral was open, the porch swept clean. A single set of boot tracks led away from the door, fading into the wide country. Some said she rode north to the mountains. Others claimed she joined the Rangers under a different name. But the old ones knew better. Around the fire on cold nights, their voices dropped to that near whisper meant for stories that are more truth than myth. They told of Eleanor Finch, a war sniper who'd vanished after burying her husband. They told how she came to Blackthorn Crossing with nothing but a deed and a rifle wrapped in canvas. How, on a dawn like no other, she stood her ground and bled the dust red to keep her land. And if you stand on that same porch today, they'll tell you, when the wind slides low through the canyon, you might hear it, the crisp crack of a single shot carried on the air like a warning. The kind that says some names aren't forgotten. The kind that says legends don't die.